Why does it seem like certain people get the jobs while you miss out? You know you're a better candidate, you've got the skills, but somehow you don't get the job. I'm going to break down the things that I look for during the interview process. Let's make sure you're putting your best foot forward. Hi, my name is James Grover and welcome to Digital Decision Makers. Trust me, I know the feeling. I've been there. I knew that I was the best possible candidate, but somehow I didn't get the job. I couldn't believe it. Now that I've been on the other side of the interview process, I understand what I was doing wrong. The last 10 to 15 years has really changed the landscape when it comes to getting a job, especially in tech. Everything moves much faster now. Recruiters blast out resumes to tons of companies, add in the appetite for remote work, and there's more opportunities than ever. How do you stand out? Of course, your resume. Well, I'm going to give you my perspective, and I'm sure this is going to be the complete opposite of what people tell you. Yes, of course, your resume is important, but people seem to have taken that too far. Every resume I read is outrageous. On paper, these candidates seem like superheroes. They got all these degrees, more certificates than I can count. It's unbelievable. In the past, this type of person was rare. Now, it's every resume that I get. That's a problem. It's obvious that people today spend more time building their resume than actually acquiring skills. More often than not, 5 minutes into an interview with one of these candidates, I realize that they have no idea. There are no shortcuts to gaining experience. You can't fill your resume up with all these degrees and certificates, then go after big money without having any experience. Yet, this is precisely the mentality of many of these candidates. Well, I've got a master's degree or PhD, so that makes me worth X. Well, no, it doesn't. I hate to break it to you, but technology moves so fast that unless you already have experience, having a master's degree or PhD just tells me that you're several years behind. No university in the world can keep up with technology. So that's the rub. By the time you get out of school, the technology has passed you by. So specifically when it comes to your resume, it's more important to acquire skills and experience than highlight those skills and that experience. Sure, if you have certs or degrees, fine, but don't feel like you have to go after all this extra stuff just to bolster your resume. Don't forget, it only takes 5 minutes to be exposed. Now that that's off my chest, let's say your resume is where it needs to be. How do you prepare for the interview? Everyone knows the basics. Be honest, personable, but above all else, know what you're talking about. For example, if you're a coder, be prepared to code. If you know, Splunk, be prepared to dig into it. Everything on your resume is fair game, so you must be able to speak in depth about everything on your resume. This is all standard stuff, right? Well, here's where things change. The way you answer these questions will make the difference between getting a job or not getting a job. Let me give you an example. Let's say I see on someone's resume that they migrated an application to AWS. So I say, tell me about this application that you migrated to AWS. 9 times out of 10, they'll dive right into answering the question. We created an image of the on-prem web servers and copied the image to AWS, stood up some servers, and routed traffic. So technically, that is correct. But is that the best way to answer the question? Let's say that I, as the candidate, was asked the same question. How would I respond? Well, we had a situation where our on-prem servers were at their end of life. We had to come up with a path forward. We could either stand up new web servers on premises or we could migrate these services to the cloud, AWS. We chose AWS since it provided additional benefits such as load balancing and redundancy. We recreated our web services in AWS and migrated our data from our on-prem servers. As a result, we were able to decom the old hardware, leverage the power of AWS, and we saw significant cost savings in our new setup while being able to simplify our disaster recovery process. In AWS, we had auto redundancy so that traffic would automatically switch to a new zone if there was an outage. Which answer sounded better to you? A lot of times, people answer these questions as if they were talking to someone in their organization. They speak like there's already a level of understanding. Except, as an interviewer, I don't have that level of understanding. I don't know why you did the things you did. This is a common mistake. Whenever I answered the question, I used the STAR method. STAR as in situation, task, action, result. Situation, the servers were at end of life. Task, figure out the best way to move forward. The action, these are the actual steps to migrate to AWS. Recreate new web services in AWS, migrate the data, all the technical details go here. Finally, result. You decom the old equipment, you save some money, you simplified the DR process through auto redundancy. See how much more impact that has? The answer carries much more weight than the first response. Now, as the interviewer, I see the whole picture. Let's put that into perspective. In scenario 1, we, as the interviewer, likely need to migrate servers. That's why I asked the question. After the response, I understood that the candidate could do it. Great. But in scenario 2, what other checkboxes were ticked? What else resonates? Yes, I need to migrate to AWS. This candidate can do it. The same as scenario 1, but then, do we also have servers at end of life? Yeah. Do we need to decom servers? Probably. Do we want to save money? Of course we do. Wouldn't we like to simplify our DR process? Yeah. Can auto redundancy help us? Being able to answer the questions in this manner will separate you. It's not about talking and talking and talking to fill dead air. It's about answering the question in a way that has the most impact with the interviewer. I also like seeing how a person handles themselves. It's not so much a right or wrong, it's more just to see how a person operates. So I may purposefully ask something that's vague or ambiguous, like, how would you secure the development environment? I would expect the candidate to ask questions. How do they know what the developer environment looks like? What's the current stack? What security protocols are already in place? Does the candidate try to get the pertinent information before making a decision? Or do they make decisions based on assumptions? Or maybe they suffer from analysis paralysis by asking question after question after question. This gives me a window into how they may handle real issues. And along those lines, I like to see how a candidate thinks. I try to use real examples, but completely hypothetical issues work too. For example, I may ask something completely off the wall. Tell me about your favorite basketball team. The candidate responds with the Heat, let's say. This type of question makes the situation feel more conversational. After all, you're not really looking for an answer. You just want to see how they think. Okay, great. Your favorite team's the Heat. Let's say you own the Miami Heat. What would you do to increase attendance? See, you can ask anything. This doesn't even have to be related to tech. How does the candidate respond? Do they ask how the ticket sales are now? What kind of promotions are running? What's the attendance goal? Maybe they tell you to increase your TV ads. Maybe they tell you to have more personnel PR events. Then I would respond by asking how. What percentage should we increase the TV ads? What PR events should we attend? This seems like simple back and forth banter, but it does give me a glimpse into how a person thinks. If right off the bat they say, I don't really know, I haven't really thought about it, well, then you know that this person would rather give up than think it through. If they say something like, well, we could give away tickets, well, yeah, that would work. It would increase attendance, but obviously the goal is to make money. You aren't exactly increasing revenue if you give away tickets. And something else. Did you notice how I started the exchange? I said, tell me about. That's another tool. Tell me about a time when X. This is non-confrontational. It gives the candidate flexibility on how they answer, but it also gives me the opportunity to dial in. So for example, tell me about a time when you were unable to meet a deadline. I was working on a project that had an incredibly tight timeline. We pushed hard and got most of the items done, but ultimately we missed the deadline. Okay, so you said you pushed hard. Well, what did that mean exactly? Well, I worked long hours and I worked weekends to make up the difference. Okay. Were you the only one on the project or was there a team involved? Yeah, we had a team involved, but no matter what we tried, we couldn't meet the deadlines. Oh, okay. Were you able to break the project down into smaller pieces? How was the project run? See, this gives me endless opportunities to drill into the scenario. And what I'm really trying to find out is how effective is the candidate? Did they really handle the situation appropriately? Were they behind because they didn't plan? Perhaps they didn't scope correctly, or maybe they really were overworked. These types of open-ended questions, along with follow-up questions, are a good way for me to gauge how a person really works without putting them on the spot or being direct and confrontational. Also, did you notice that the question wasn't answered using the STAR method? Had it been answered that way, it would have provided me a better picture, but also there would have been fewer places for me to poke at. So let's say that the interview's been going well and now we're wrapping up. And I say, do you have any questions for me? And you already know the response. No, I'm good. I think you asked everything. This is absolutely the wrong response. This is your time to shine. You have the floor. Ask your questions. Imagine yourself in the position. What does that look like? What are some of the things that you could influence? And how would those influence you in that position? And if you're still drawing a blank, you can use this one. It's a good one. I can't take credit for it. I didn't think of it, but I did have someone ask me and I was like, oof, that was a good one. So here goes. If I were in this position, what would success look like in 6 months to a year? I was like, well, we want to accomplish X in 6 months and Y in 12 months. And then the candidate responded, I think I could accomplish that. I got to tell you, that was pretty powerful. I half expected that he was already on board and would have these things knocked out in 6 months or 12 months. At the end of the day, we want to hire you, but we need to make sure that we're hiring the right person. These are some of the tools that I use when trying to determine if a candidate is the right person. Being able to navigate these situations, along with using something like the STAR method, will have a definite impact. If I believe that you're the right candidate, I'll pull the trigger now. There's no need to interview tons of candidates. Let's get the candidate so we can move forward. It doesn't make sense for me to tie up hours upon hours doing interviews. Give me a reason to select you. You have the tools to make it happen. It won't be long before you'll be asking, how do I move from engineer to executive? Click the video at the end of this one where I answer that question. Engineer to executive, what's stopping you? Well, that'll wrap it up for this one. Thanks for checking me out on Digital Decision Makers.